Hello. Hi. I'm all right. It's going well. So I got, I'm doing this live because I have new fetters. I have two new fetters. I have the old fetters. I have two new ones because I couldn't decide which one I wanted. So I worked it out with Siggy that I could get both of them and then just do a giveaway for the one that I don't want to keep. So we'll see how that goes. So I'm trying to figure out which one I want. So this is they're pretty much identical. It's just one's a bit longer than the other. And I'm trying to figure out which one I really like. Of course, I won't really know until I practice with them against somebody else. So these Siggies are very nimble in the tip. A lot of nimbleness there. Yeah, it's really easy to track to keep the point kind of where you want it. So let's see, let me think. Yeah, because once it starts wobbling, that point kind of stabilizes. So if I start tracking like this, you can see thereabouts, there's a point, there's kind of a rotational point here that it wants to kind of work around. You see that? That kind of point hovering kind of right about there or so. Different swords have different behaviors to that respect. So here's like a C. All right, this is we're getting a short. And the short's nice. The short balances further out. So it has a little more cut presence than the Siggy. This one like really feels like it's going when you throw it with it. I also have my old Klobowski here. Yeah, yeah, they do seem really nimble. So as opposed to what I'm used to, this is what I'm used to. This is an old Klobowski. So this is my first sword. This is the very first Klobowski. I mean, the very first fetter I've used. I've been using this thing like my entire I've been using this thing for basically 8 years. I've been using this sword is 8 years old, more or less. I think maybe 7. I'm trying to remember when I got this. I think I got this like a year in or something like that. So yeah, this is probably about 7 years old. This sword, and it's seen better days. It's been better, and I'm a fan of it. But it's I don't it's not heavy, but it is ponderous relative to other swords. So this thing is very, it just kind of goes, and it has a lot of heft behind its swing. It's a very commanding sword to swing, but it's not nimble. So it's against people with like nimble swords. I have a lot of presence where I can just kind of be like, boom, and in. But as far as playing off that or any sort of like follow-up actions go, any follow-up actions with the Klobowski I find to be frustratingly slow and easy-ish for people to react to, as opposed to when I've fenced with lighter swords that you can really kind of get those snaps through, which is kind of what I'm exploring towards. Now, the only one I haven't actually swung around yet is the other Siggy. So I have two Siggys here with me right now that I'm trying out. They're right here. I have a Siggy short and I have a Siggy regular. So the Siggy short I picked up because it is basically the same dimensions that I'm used to. What's the handling difference between a fetter and a synthetic sword? That is not something that can be answered in one way, because I'm sitting here comparing the handling differences between different fetters. So even within the category of fetter skirts, they handle differently. So that's kind of a tricky one. sometimes there's kind of a bit of a trend that like the feathers will be a little bit like nicer than like the true steel sword would be, but they're still going to be closer than like a synthetic sword would be. Like a nylon sword won't feel right. These feel much closer to like how they should actually feel, and you can get them to the point where they do feel the same. It's just makers tend to push them a little towards the sportification side of things, just a little bit. So they tend to be a little more responsive than actual swords would be, but it's a very slight distinction. Now let's see here. This is the one I haven't swung around yet. This is the full size Siggy. This is a much larger sword than the other ones. Let's see. For perspective, let's get over here. So they're both, yeah, look at that. That's a pretty substantial difference right there. So this is a much larger sword. But despite being much larger, this should actually be nimbler. It should be, anyways. I'm not sure. I can feel like the heft of this thing. How many swords do I currently have? That's a good question. I'm not sure. It might be around 20 now. Oh, this feels very different. This feels a lot more. Oh, that's interesting. This Fiat has a lot more sword. I mean, it's a bigger sword, right? This you can feel. Oh boy, yeah. Like I could use this in one hand, but it is. Oof. Wow. Interesting. That is a lot more sword than the other one. Basically, I think the one-hand performance probably drives home the distinction. So let me get the two CDs together. Because they're going to be very similar peers in every other respect. So you can kind of see, I imagine you can kind of see how trying to use this one in one hand is a little more of an enterprise. You can see how much more my body has to commit to it, as opposed to this short. You see how much more nimbler that is in one hand? This is a hand and a half sword. This is like a, so in the spectrum, this is actually really exciting because in the spectrum of two-handed, of long swords, these are basically perfectly encapsulating the distinction that they can ride behind. So like the two extremes. Well, actually, there's actually a third extreme. I think this is like the middle sword here. So I would say in the spectrum of long swords, you have like basically three archetypes, and I am missing the third archetype. So we have a like two-handed sword that can be used in one hand, a truly indifferent sword. It does not care if you're using it in one hand or two. It works both ways. And then the third one would be a one-handed sword that you can use in two hands. So that would be kind of the three pieces of the spectrum, right? So this one is very much a viable one-handed sword. This thing feels very usable in one hand. This, not so much. This is one that you can do stuff with it in one hand. You know, like if I have to, I can throw a cut with it. But I have to be way more into it, and it's not something I can. Yeah, like I can't really pop with it like I can pop with this one. Meaning like, see that distinction? I'm gonna try to do these two. Yeah. So might as well have them both in hand, right? So what I'm talking about here is the ability of me to go from like a resting position out. You see that? That's pretty easy to do with that. Now if I switch swords, I try to do that same thing. You see how much more like effort that kind of takes to get that same pop? So that's the short, and this is the regular. It's a slight distinction, but it's definitely relevant for handling. So this is just my work clothes. I'm dressed like this. This is how I came home. Unfortunately, I'm starting to sweat through it because it is a very, very, very muggy day out right now. It rained. It's very damp. It's very hot. I am starting to sweat. You can see it. So I probably won't be out here much longer because again, I don't have anybody here to swing against, right? So there's only so much I can extrapolate on the handling as far as my preference goes by just swinging them around. They're telling me a lot, but I really need somebody I can cross swords with to feel the distinction between the handling. Now, what I'm very interested to find out is which one feels stronger in the bind. So I don't know which it's going to be. But let me explain why I don't know which it's going to be. Because both of them have compelling reasons for why they might actually be superior in the bind. This one, the long one, is bigger. It's meatier. It has more heft. It has a longer handle. It's just a bigger sword, right? So it has a bit more mass, which can help in the bind. But it has a longer blade. And having a longer blade means that I have more of a week to be exploited. So I'm not sure. I'm genuinely not sure which one is going to hold up better in a bind situation. Which one's going to be more likely to win the bind? Which one's more likely to lose the bind? I just don't know. I'm very excited to find out. Their crossguards are the same, so that's good. I'm very excited. Let's see. I don't think of any other observations to make. So, the interesting thing is, although the Siggy is, the standard Siggy is larger than my Klobowski, it feels more like my Klobowski. And then the Siggy Short, despite being the same size as my Klobowski, is a much nimbler sword. This thing is really fast. I am very excited to like. Oh, it is completely covered in grease too, so I have to like. Thumb gripping it is going to be not possible. I'm going to slide straight off of it, but the capacity for this one to do like a. What's the word I'm looking for here? A schnappen. Like that is speed. I can be up and down really fast. Wow. The sword wind it makes is interesting because the tip is spatulated, so the pitch there's a weird like sound drag at the tip of it, which I find interesting. Yeah, right up there. So I'm trying to figure out what that sound informs. I'm trying to figure out if that's the sound I'm chasing or the sound that's not good. I don't care about the rattling. The rattling does not bother me. Plus, it's peened on, so I'm like, I really can't be bothered. It just ends up rattling again pretty quickly. Like I fixed it before, but it's just an old sword and it's gotten loose and yeah. I just don't know which sword I'm gonna go with. I'm probably gonna compete with this one, probably, just because it's the same length I'm used to. So I want to be able to comfortably present it. My reach is what I'm used to. No shorter or longer than I expect it to be. But this one, I don't know. Honestly, this one doesn't handle like I'm used to. This one's way more out there. Way, much more commanding in the cut. Short, but I don't know. This is way more sword. And very long handle. Look at the length that handle is so long. Look at that thing. Wow. Like I know, you know, better handles are long because you have to fit your gloves on, right? But just that is so long. Yeah, I mean, even on the short, the handle length is essentially the same as what I'm used to. Like on the short, this is what I'm used to, lengthwise. It's just much faster than I'm used to. I'm also not sure what's going to happen with this pronounced schilt. I've never had a fetter with a schilt this pronounced before. I'm curious what this is going to do for the handling characteristics, like when it comes to the bind. Because I've never had this before. I don't know what this does. Because on my Klobowski, this is the schilt I've had. You see how much more pronounced the Siggy is? Look at that. That's a significant schilt. And I don't know what that's going to do to the bind. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it'll definitely give me some extra protection. But yeah, it's because, so what happens on this one, you see that? So if a blade comes down, it slides and pops right there. If I do the same thing on the Siggy, it stops there. I'm not sure what that's going to be like. I've never had that. I've never had a sword like that. I don't know. We're going to find out. It's going to be an interesting experience. Learning experience. Knowing what a schilt feels like. So, find out. I'm really sweaty and it's very hot and awful. Does anybody have any questions? I'm probably going to wrap this up real fast. I just wanted to be outside so I can actually, like, move the sword around. But I keep coming back to the short, which I think tells me something. You would think that, right? Like, I keep picking up the short. Now, I don't know if that's just I'm picking it up, or if it's implying a greater preference here. That, like, you know, it's what feels right. The fact that I keep picking it up over and over again. I'm just thinking, like, this thing's gonna be nasty. I don't have anything with a wavy blade. I don't have anything with wavy blades. Man, that thing is so snappy. But basically, I'm trying to avoid falling into the prey of enjoying the super fast snappy sword, because in being a super fast snappy sword, it's not heavy. It doesn't. It's to be super fast and snappy. It's not a very it doesn't have much mass, right? It's a very light sword. So while it feels fantastic to sling around in the air, what about when I actually have to hit someone with it, right? And I have to deal with the fact that somebody's cutting against me. Do I still want the fast, snappy sword then, or do I want the one with more heft? You tend to grip your two-handed swords with your hands as far away from each other as possible to get as much leverage as you can. Is that wrong? No. One of the key things to learn about like longsword gripping is that it's like the only time you're holding your like longsword like factually wrong is if you are studying a specific source that tells you not to do that. There are so many permutations of grip, like so many grip permutations, that to say like something like that is wrong is ridiculous, because there is going to be some source somewhere that says, no, go for that. And so the only time you're ever wrong is if you're studying a source that tells you not to. Like, for example, Doughbringer. Doughbringer says never hold the pommel. I'm not touching it right now because I don't want to like oil it, but basically Doughbringer says don't hold the pommel ever. He does not want you to hold the pommel. So if you're holding the pommel and you're studying Doughbringer, you're doing it wrong. But if you study somebody else and they say hold the pommel, then you're doing it right. So, you know, do what feels right. And I'll change my grip. You know, sometimes I'm holding the pommel, sometimes I'm not. Whether or not I'm holding the pommel tends to depend on what I'm doing. If I am cutting, I'm not holding the pommel because I want the counterbalance of I want the pommel to be a counterbalance in my cut. So I want, as my sword goes forward, I want that pommel behind me. But if I'm doing like point work, I want touching it. It's all oily and I'm sweaty. I don't want to touch it. But if I'm doing point work, I want to be back, so I have the full extension of my leverage to basically work it. Although I'm realizing I don't like it with this. Like, this sword does not feel like it's designed for you to be holding the pommel. It doesn't feel right with this sword. It feels like I should be right back here. This is where my hands want to be on this sword, which is leaving quite a lot of pommel behind. Like, not even just pommel, like just that's a lot behind my hand, and I feel no compulsion to grip down there, as opposed to the short, where my hand does want to kind of be floating around down here. Man, this thing's snappy. I assume you all can hear that, the sword wind as it's cutting through the air. That's a good sign as to training tip for you all. I'm so sweaty. Training tip for you all. Sword wind is like the way to train your edge alignment. I suppose it does increase your pommel strike range, but it also makes it easier to like stop your pommel strike. There's more stuff. Why do they have a small crossguard like spikes above the crossguard? So this is part of the schilt. So the schilt is not something. So this is the schilt. The schilt is not something you really see on like actual longswords. This is something you see. You see something like a schilt on two-handed swords, and you see the schilt on Federschwerts, but you don't see the schilt on just longswords. And the Federschwerts are training longswords. So the schilt is basically, you see how skinny this blade is relative to a actual longsword? It does not give me the like actual width that a longsword would be. And the schilt basically beefs up the base of the blade so that it is as like wide. It's giving you the protection a full-size blade would give you down here. And then a schilt like this, which stops the bind out here. Let me get the two different good examples of schilts here. Because I have two really good examples that are basically opposing. So this is a schilt that is just trying to beef up the width of the blade to be an accurate width. And this is a schilt that is trying to beef up the blade and give you added protection. So as the blade comes down on this schilt, it skips and it lands right there. That's just, it will be there at the cross. That's just where it ends up. That is not a bad thing. It just depends on what you want. Because on an actual sword, as the blade slides down, that's where it's going to be. And that's it. The schilt like this, as the blade slides down, it stops at the schilt. Now, that is something of an artificiality because it won't slide down to here, which means that your angle on defense can be more forgiving. I can stop a hit from hitting my hand at a wider angle than I could. Look at that, see that? So there, my hand's kind of at risk. Here, my hand is safer for longer. So that's kind of the distinction there. And I have never had a schilt like this before, so I don't know what that's going to do for my fencing experience, or what it's going to do with regards to me doing like F-Setsen, which is a move I really like. So this might actually be a problem for me. I don't think it will. I think it'll stop. I don't think this is, I think the design of this schilt means that I won't actually have an issue doing F-Setsen. I think I'll still be fine. But that's something I won't know until I try it. And just messing around with it in the air isn't going to tell me whether or not it works. So schilts are made for what exactly? Are they mainly one purpose? There are all, you can get, schilts can be all kinds of different shapes. There are so many different variations of shapes with schilts. It really can depend. And so the shape somewhat informs you of the function. They seem much lighter than they look. Oh yeah, they are very light. Yeah. Because they need to be light enough to be fast. Like, if you have a big, heavy, well, maybe not even necessarily light enough to be fast on the swing. I would say they need to be light enough to be fast on the defense. That's where they need to be fast. My personal opinion is, you know, first and foremost, your main concern should be defense, or like not saying that you should be a passive defender. Not saying that. I mean, you should, if in a sword fight, your first priority should be not dying, right? Like priority 1, don't die. Priority 2, make the other person stop. Stop the other person. You know, priority 1, don't die. Stop the person. And having a sword that is fast helps with both of those, because it means that I can go, oh no, I gotta protect myself, right? I can throw a cut and very quickly snap and recover and protect myself, as opposed to if I had a very, very heavy sword, I'd take one swing and then my sword like drags me down to here, and then I'm like, and I have to protect myself, and then I'm dead, right? So a sword that's fast enough to hit and then recover is really useful. I had some historical martial artists and swords people stop by my town before, and it was so impressive. Yeah, we love giving demos. It's great. Good time. I keep coming back to the shorty. I keep realizing. I keep coming back to this one. I think this is going to be the one. I think. Once again, I'll find out when I start hitting people with it, whether or not this is the one. But so far, this is the most like I'm used to, because what I'm used to is my Klobowski, which has pretty much the same point of balance as the Siggy. It's just heavier. This is just a heavy This is like has all the same handling characteristics of that Siggy short, but it's heavier. But other than that, it's the same. So it feels, it has the same kind of like rotational qualities as the Siggy. It's just heavier. Whereas the Siggy regular has like completely different handling qualities to it. It feels very foreign to me. It feels very up the blade, more so than I'm used to, where it wants to be. Not to say by any means that this is a bad sword. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's different. Whoa, that's committed. Whoa, that might be not so fun for me. That's way more committed. Less committed. We'll find out. Yeah, one hand. There we go. This one, yeah. It's definitely snappier in two hands, for sure. But yeah, you can totally use it in one hand. It's no trouble at all to use this in one hand. I like it. Yeah, again, I keep coming back to the short. Just feels good. Star Wars in a Star Wars in a nutshell. Okay, I am very hot now. Love swords. Oh, I'm so glad that helps. I'm gonna like move things inside because I'm very hot, but I'll keep the live going for a bit. I'm just relocating. Whew. Ah, very sweaty. Okay. Okay. Very, very warm. Yeah, I'm glad that helps with your D&D characters. And reference is hurt, picking things. Are long swords the best weapons for leverage, or is it some sort of axe? That's I mean, the longer the handle you have, the more leverage you have. So like, it's kind of they're two very very different weapons. So like, yeah, you have more leverage on the axe, absolutely, and you have. You've got like, what am I doing? I have a. Now, like, this is more leverage than longsword, right? Like, that's a lot of leverage. But yeah, it comes at, doesn't necessarily mean it's like a straight upgrade. You know, there's more than just leverage, right? That's just you. Absolutely beautiful. I'm trying to figure out the best angle to get this. There you go. There's my little bird. Little bird with a sword. What? I do not have a Polish saber. Yeah, sure. Yeah, feel free to tag me in whatever art you do. I'd love to see it. Complex hilted. It has 2 side rings. I have never sparred with the Beck de Corbin. It would kill someone. That is actually a weapon. They'd be dead if I did. Yeah. I do not own a flamberge. Flamey thing. A flame stick. What a formidable piece. Man. I'm just doting on it. I fence, right? Like I have a sword that feels good in my hand. I'm just like, yeah. Just appreciating it. And I love the rough handle. It's got a rough handle. My hand, you can see how like red my hand is. You see how it's getting all inflamed, which some people find it uncomfortable, and it is. Like, yeah, it's a rough handle. It's rough, but I want the rough handle because it means I have a good grip. You know, my hand's not sliding around on this thing. Like, it's rough handle is friction. Friction is good for maintaining control of your sword. If the handle's slick, off it goes. What am I doing here? I do not have anything remotely like a ebony blade from Skyrim. That thing's a whole bit. Yeah, I mean, gloves would help, but I don't like wearing gloves. I fight bare palmed, so I have gloves, protective gloves, but they have open palms because I really want to maintain touch. I want to feel the sword, and as soon as I put gloves on, I don't feel it. So I always keep bare palms when I'm fencing, just so I can feel the sword in my hand. A Tor. Yeah, I can do a Tor. Right, so let me think. Oh, so, yeah, well, yeah, there's some wall mounting going on there. All right, so I guess, yeah, so the new Siggy feather shirt. It's pretty, it's brand new, it's lovely. Wonderful. Cisco Supplies Rapier. It's garbage. Don't buy one. It's the first one I ever bought. That's why it's here. Don't get one. Just don't. This is a windlass 15th century longsword. This is the Hanwei Rhinelander. It has one side ring. And it also doesn't like its scabbard very much. It fights it. Someone asked a question about something about handling or something. Is it the wrist, elbow, or shoulder the part that does the most work? Forearm? Can I say forearm, I think. Forearm feels important. Between those. I think it's forearm. Not wrist. I mean, wrist does work, like, forearm. It's forearm. I mean, elbow. Elbow doesn't feel like the right. It's all. It's here. This is where all the action. Like this is where all the. It's all through here. At least as far as the arms are concerned. Their power generation comes from the core. So power generation comes from this. This is where all your power comes from. Is your ability to make like every cut has a step. So it's the hip. You need to like move the camera down. Where's my? I need like a whatever. So power generation comes from here. This is where the power comes from. As you move, boom, that transition of hips through power, that's where power, arms guide and provide structure for the power. So power, boom, arms guide. So that's where like kind of the forearm strength kind of comes in, because it's, you know, basically keep maintaining that structure. So everything kind of, the forearms, the job on the forearms is basically, as soon as that cut is launched and like kind of like locks in, the forearms are kind of tensing up and like, not tense, but they are tensing. Strength, structure, holding it, hips. So as you feel the cut, this pops out, gets into position, hips are boom. And then the shoulders are kind of in it a little bit, but in a more supporting capacity, I guess. Hello. What am I reading? This thing's went off here. Okay. Yeah, obsidian. Obsidian's super sharp. That'd be a Macadal? Mancadal? Something like that. It's a cricket bat, and then you take a bunch of obsidian shards, and you line your cricket bat with obsidian shards, and there you go. No, I haven't. No. I got derailed from my show and tell. So we have a poleaxe, and then a 1717 French musket up top. I have this like mystery messer. I have no idea who makes this. I got it for like $80. It seemed good enough to gamble on. I have no idea. I don't know what the sword. It's some sort of messer. The nagel is awful. That's the one thing. The nagel is absolutely terrible. Look at this thing. Like, why is it so steep? That should be out. It shouldn't be that steep. That's awful. But whatever. I only paid like $80 for it. Like, I don't mind it. It's not stainless steel, so that's a plus. I don't actually like cut anything with it either. It's sharp. I haven't cut anything with it. One axe I got from a con. It was like some sort of convention. It's kind of screwed. It's whatever. It's mostly just there for decoration. The thing is so short anyways. Back you go. What else do I have? What else do I have? One rondelle dagger. Yeah, it's cheap. One rondelle, no pointy bit. This is blunt. There's another old acquisition, you can tell because it's kind of ridiculous. This is just an old. It's called like Knight's Dagger or something. It's just a stainless steel like dagger. It's pretty. It's pretty. I got another Klobowski. I have 2 Klobowskis. One rapier from Toledo. Made in Spain. A little dinged up, but one rapier. Toledo, Spain. You can see how short the handle is on this one. And the reason why that handle is so short is that your fingers go up in there. Oh, I'm well aware of Todd's workshop, but Todd is a fantastic craftsman, and that means his products are way too expensive for me. I cannot afford Todd. As much as I would love to. Todd is out of my price range. I have one little small sword trainer. It's basically this Frankenstein monstrosity. It is like it's basically a epee smashed into a foil and then a guard welded onto it. It's very strange. It's a very, very, very strange sword. So, yeah, that's a fun one. Ooh. I have a Fabri Armorum Longmesser. So that is how a nagel should look. That's a good nagel. That's where it should be, not up. It should be right there. That's a good one. This thing's lovely. I love this sword. This is such a nice little nimble thing. It's wonderful. It feels great to use. It's pretty short. That is my go-to one-handed sword for like practice and stuff. I have one Catswalker. This one's Kingston Arms, I believe. One Catswalker. Look at that. Oh. I find it hard to cut with, though. I find this one hard. I find it hard because of the like fishtail pommel that it has. Like, I guess you could call it a fishtail. In that I have a really hard time finding a way to hold it that I like. Which, I mean, the idea being that, you know, you should be able to get a nice weld with your hand. Kind of up against that groove, but I find that where my hand kind of like settles is not with proper edge alignment. Like when my hand actually settles on the sword, I find that I'm not actually aligned with it. And it's slightly off, and I haven't quite figured out how I like to hold it yet. What was that? I saw comments. Caught budget range and are still good while being relatively. Maybe I'll look into them. Do I have a sword designed to inflict pain to wounds or more damage? I think I understand what you mean. You're looking for a sword that is like deliberately designed to cause like additional suffering and not just like cut them. You're thinking like something like barbed or whatever, right? Which the answer is no. I don't have anything like meant to inflict harm out of cruelty, if that makes sense. All these swords are just, yeah, all I have are just they're swords. Like, they do their thing. I don't have anything else. Yeah, sword of break Geneva connection. Yeah, I don't have any swords like that. So that's that. This isn't technically all of the swords because I actually have like duplicates. I have 2 Klobowskis. I have 2 of those small swords. I have 2 Messers. I have pairs. A reprise of this from before. I really like this. My favorite historical outfit would probably be my Pluter hose. I'm not counting the armor because that seems unfair. I think it'd be unfair to count my armor. So I'm gonna go when we're talking about outfits. You know, I feel like armor is cheating. So I'm gonna say my Pluter hose. This is a fun little poleaxe. Yeah, this is short. And this is very short. This is a very short little. This is my zombie defense choice. So if I find out that there are zombies, and I have to deal with those zombies, this is what I'm grabbing. This would be my first choice for zombies. I don't trust blades in the long term for that purpose. Blades are easy to do wrong. So like under this, like, you know, this is more likely to give you that guaranteed lights out on a zombie. You have 2 options there. If you only have 1 zombie to deal with, use the beak, because that's really gonna do it. But a beak might get stuck. So like if you have to deal with multiple zombies, then you use the hammerhead. So you get options there, and also it doesn't really have like a minimum range. You know, you can choke up on it. You can use it in 1 hand if you need to. You can use it in a walking stick. You can use it to grab things. You could use it to push. You can push with it, or shove, block, whatever you need to do. Really nice, and it's small, and you know it's not really sharp. Really, easy to keep a hold of. You know, like you could just put like a loop on it and just kind of like sling it over your shoulder. Whatever. It doesn't have. It's not nearly as fussy. Swords are divas. Swords need to be pampered. They need to be taken care of. They need to be stored correctly. They're very, very fussy things. You know, the tips roll. You throw a bad cut into like some bone and you like bend the edge. Now you have to go fix that. You know, swords are obnoxious from a like maintenance perspective relative to like, you know, a hammer on a stick. I have not heard of that person. Oh, I have a spear. I don't want to get the spear out because it's gigantic, but I will point the camera. There's my spear, and then my montante. Montante all the way up there. That's my biggest sword, and then that's my biggest weapon. Biggest sword, biggest weapon. Montante. Montante and stuff. Whew. I think that's about it. I have a little toy crossbow. Hello, honey.
Hello.
I have a toy crossbow.
Huh?
All the weapons.
Yeah.
Very scary.
Yeah, super scary. Super scary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those things do fire with a fair bit of power.
Yeah, there's such a power. Nothing's scary. Do I have a favorite shield? I only have 1 shield, so I guess yes. I suppose I have a favorite shield because I only have 1. Boom. Honey, come back. You've left me. I miss you. I miss you. Come
I
back.
haven't seen you like all day.
Yeah, I miss you. Yeah, I would agree. So swords are very good at killing people. But zombies play by different rules. They don't care. You know, you can like plant cuts anywhere on a person, and that's gonna be bad for them. Zombie don't care. Zombie doesn't fence. At least I hope they don't. If zombies learn how to fence, we are in big trouble. That's one thing. Like a lot of the advantages swords enjoy are irrelevant against zombies. Zombies, you know, you don't. Swords are really good at defending yourself. Like you can defend yourself very well with a sword from other weapons. Zombies don't use weapons. Swords are very good at disabling or discouraging opposition from armed opponents. A zombie doesn't care if you slice their like wrist. They're just trying to bite you. So the only thing a zombie cares about, and not that it actually cares, but the only thing that's gonna like stop a zombie is like la cabeza. If I were in an open field battle, what weapon would I choose? That's I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. That's a good question. I guess it depends on what they're using. And what I have. It's hard to answer that. Maybe probably the spear. Probably the spear. I'm thinking probably the spear. Hunting's great, but unless I'm fighting outnumbered, I think the spear. Like if it's like me versus like a whole bunch of people all at once, then probably the Montante. But if it's just like if I'm just squaring up on people, yeah, context. If I'm just squaring up on like one person, I'll probably pick the spear. I've seen some of the like movie adaptations of Terry Pratchett stuff. I've never read Terry Pratchett, but I probably would love it because I really enjoyed the adaptations of his work. I'm not going to change your name or change your mind. No, you're right. It's a gun spear. I mean, yeah. You've heard better thing from Siggy shorties than regulars. I will keep that in mind. In messing around, it looks like you're new in the live. I actually have two Siggys here in front of me. I've got next to me. I've got a Siggy short and a Siggy regular, and between the two of them, I keep going back to the short. I keep like they're both sitting there, but I keep picking up the short, which I think tells me something about my preference. I just keep picking this one up over and over again. The short. What metals are the best for swords overall, in my opinion? Spring steel. I don't know enough about like the nitty gritty of different kinds of steel. That's something I leave up to the bladesmiths. The people who make these know better than I do. I don't have a preference. I just know that spring steel's good because spring steel goes wow 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 wow, and it's good to have that wow wow wow.
That's what I say every time I see you.
What?
That's what I say every time I see you.
Can I show the axe? Yes, the axe behind me is real. Yes, my partner does do HEMA as well. I have her sword right there.
That's where'd you put it?
It's right there. Oh, could you? I wanted to check something. I've been trying to figure out how the schilt affects upsetting. So if you could just
You have a Siggy, so I can
you got yours. So I'm trying to figure out what the upsets is. So if you can just like hold out a point for me. I'm trying to like, get the I guess bring it in closer. So my thought is as it comes in, I do an upset symbol. So if you can kind of just sort of like vaguely twist. Yeah. So as I come up to set that aside. Okay, I was wondering if the schilt, the way I don't think the schilt actually affects my ability to upset. I think it still works fine. So I was wondering, because, so give me, do like thumb grip out. Like, just give me like a thumb. So you see like, so when this meets, see that?
Yeah.
Now do the same thing at the beginning. It stops there.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out what that means. Because I've never had a schilt that does that before. So I've been trying to figure out like what I do that what will influence, what having that schilt will influence. It will keep
Yeah.
my hand safer.
Yeah. I think it's going to be in a positive way instead of negative.
Yeah, I'm just curious. But the upsetting was my main concern. I didn't know if it was going to throw off my upsetting game, but I think that my upsetting starts further out to where the schilt doesn't actually matter. Because I really like upsetting, and I'd be mortified if it stopped working. Yes, I will upload more. So the only challenge I have with uploading actual fencing videos is that so I assume you mean like I'm actually fencing, right? Or do you mean like just fencing topic videos? Because the answer is yes to both. Videos on fencing topics I've been not doing because on TikTok I'm currently under a a violation warning, and so I've been trying to avoid doing like sword content, just because I don't feel like it's safe for me to post them right now until that kind of blows over. And so because I'm not recording for TikTok, it also means I'm not really recording for them for here either, because I only get but so much made. But I will be making more content of that type soonish, especially now that I have this. I have to do a review on this. I mean, that was part of the deal, is I had to review these. So I'm going to be getting to that, and then I've got a tournament coming up, so I'm going to have footage from the tournament that I'm going to be uploading. That's going to be exciting. But it's just like recording sparring is hard because we wander, and there's like no guarantee we actually get a good angle. Like I can set stuff up to record, but it's like anyone's guess if the footage is useful and usable or not, and I usually just don't do it. Show the dog. What?
I just think that's funny.
The dog is currently in her kennel being grumpy.
Rosie, come here.
We didn't put her in there. She just went in there to be a stinker.
Here. Look the tree.
Rosie, come here.
Go Daddy.
Come here. Rosie.
No, I gave Daddy the
Rosie,
tree.
I have it. Come here.
We bamboozled her.
Let's see. I'm going to have to, right, it's not TikTok camera. It's, okay, let me get your butt. Oh, she's squirming. There she is. There's that tail going. Is that your mom over there? Do you see your mama? You see your mama?
Hi, Rosie. There's my girl.
One dog.
Hello. You know I have more treats, don't you?
Right, what time is it? I had other stuff I needed. I need to do my laundry.
Almost 8, not quite.
I think I'm probably gonna wrap things up here in a minute. Did anyone have any last topics they want me to cover before I wrap things up? I guess tomorrow's my last day to get any prep stuff done for.
Yeah. Friday you won't have any time after work.
Oh.
And you're gone.
I'm going to Queen's Gambit. So I have to figure out, I mean, I can take both feathers with me, so I don't have to make a decision until the moment I'm fighting. I just want to know.
Attack your parents when you get there.
Yeah.
Come out of nowhere.
I mean, if I can just get you to just do some light work tomorrow, that'd probably be very informative. I'm not a fan of cold showers. Even when it's hot, I usually do it at the very least mildly warm. I either do hot or I do warm. I don't do cold. Oh my goodness. I don't read urban fantasy, so I couldn't tell you. Favorite non-sword weapons I've been able to try. Musket. I like muskets. Muskets are fun. They go boom. What? What?
Look at she's just hiding in her couch.
She's so cranky. Here, I'm gonna share this with you all. Share. Yeah, let me makes more sense to do it this way. What? What? I've called her out. Now she's grumpy. No, she's grumpy. Yeah. Grumpy. Yeah, I do sword and buckler.
You want to Brussels sprout? Sit. Brussels sprout.
Wandering around. Yeah, she is grumpy. She's very grumpy. I have a floor full of swords right now. Sword rack. I guess I can put the swords in the sword rack. Might be. I wonder what this looks like with all the swords in the sword rack. One sword. Yeah, I'm starting to get a little worried about the weight of the swords in the sword rack. Oh, that's interesting. I guess I have to like. That'll be interesting. They kind of lock in with that shit. Interesting. Whoa. I don't know how much I like that. Ugh. Doop doop doop. One. Virginia. Yeah, that's gonna just be a thing. Guess I'll just have to be conscious of the fact that it'll need to be like rotated in. That's gonna be a whole thing to do. And then the long one. This one's big. I know, Rosie, I know. Very loud. Somebody, what's going on here? Oh, spamming. Can I? Oh, I can. Oh, I can do a thing. I can do a thing. Timeout. Aha. Because I don't like kicking people, but spam. I'll put timeout if someone's spamming. There we go. I can do that. And then I have one more sword to put in. Ugh. There's too many swords. And then one bow. The bow needs to like go back to where it belongs. So many swords. The thing is, this is such a long handle. This sword has a ridiculously long handle. Fun. What an awful problem. Too many swords. Oh, speaking of fetish hurts. Fetters. Let's see, where's it? So you see? Schilt. Historical basis. Yeah, so I think that's. I've been on live for about like over an hour now. So these illustrations, these are from Meyer, The Art of Combat, or The Art of Fencing, whichever translation you prefer. So these are plates from it. So you're just looking for Joachim Meyer's Art of Combat stuff. What's my theory on the purpose of the schilt? Expand the sword width to the width of an actual sword blade. Some weight rebalancing, and to potentially optionally add additional protection for the hands. Thank you all for joining me. This was a much more like enjoyable live than I usually have on YouTube. So, thanks everybody.